I'm gonna go ahead and put this in because somebody didn't do it. See how low this one is, and then I'll gripe at him when he gets out here.
Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Steve's Horse Show. Today, on our quest to try to provide you value, we have brought in an expert equipment repairman. Ronnie Forbes with J&R Equipment. He's going to talk to us about PM on your all your farm equipment, your skid steers, your maybe even lawnmowers.
And they all need to be taken care of.
They all need to be taken care of before you have an issue, and that is something that Ronnie's been trying to beat into my head for the last year that he's been working on all of our, maybe 2 years. That it's been a while now that he's been working on our stuff. We only call him when we have a problem instead of trying to beat it before we have a problem. And Ronnie, when you talk to most like farms, that probably the people that would be watching this are driving their tractor or their skid steer, something like that, maybe 3-4 times a week, that they're using it to spread manure out in pasture, they're using it to put out a round bale, and then they put it back up. And that's pretty much the only time that they drive it. When you think about a person like that, what do most people call you for in a situation like that? What has happened?
The biggest problem on something like that is a no start.
Okay,
because
it won't start.
They forget to maintain the batteries. And that's a big part, because in order for your piece of equipment to run, you got to have oil, air, fuel, and your battery. And then, of course, the oil keeps everything lubricated.
Right.
But if you let that battery go down, and it's not going to start. So a lot of the things that I get on things that set a lot like that, like on your horse farms and stuff, where they use it randomly.
Right.
That happens a lot.
Right. So how can you prevent something like that from that happening?
They need to be started, usually on a weekly basis. If you happen to run by it, reach in and start it. Let it run while you're doing your feed buckets or whatever. Just to let it build the battery. Let the alternator charge.
Once a week is kind of the ballpark.
Just let it circulate. Big thing, make sure the key's turned off when you leave it.
How long would you leave it running?
You can get a good charge back in one for 30 minutes or so. Making sure that the battery cables are in good shape, not all corroded. I've walked out there and there's big old globs of corrosion on them.
Right.
And you grab it and it just snaps off. It's a big problem.
Yeah. Well, with things that sit for a long time, I think a lot of people feel like I don't use it that much, so I don't change the oil that much, or I don't, check on things that much. How often would you recommend like a PM or something like that?
Well, most of your manufacturers, it depends on if it's synthetic oil or if it's just regular oil. Your regular oil, they recommend 250 hours, whether it's being used or not, because the oil sits there. You get condensation in your oil pan. You get, dirt. Somebody starts it up and you get dirt through the oil dipstick tube when you check it or something like that. I mean, there's just contaminants that cause all kinds of problems.
Right.
Synthetics, usually 500 hours. Anything like that, because of course the synthetics.
And that's of use or of 500 hours period? So every however long it would be.
They want to go by, your hours go by usage time. If you're not using it and it sets for a year, it needs to be,
okay.
If you're not using it a lot in that year, it still needs to be changed every year.
Right.
Here we are at the machine. We're going to show you, what it takes to do the different PMs. Of course, you have your grease certs. Make sure you hit all these. These are pins for all these functions on this thing. And once they get dry, there can be, on this machine, there's probably 20 that need to be hit, especially on that front end where, your forks and stuff are working. And as you're greasing it, look for damage, or wet hoses. Like, this hose is wet, so that tells you that there's hydraulic leaking somewhere, because that's a hydraulic system. So we got a leak, so you can start looking. Well, right now, I find we got a lift cylinder that's leaking right here. So, and then your fuel filters are a big deal, because without fuel, it won't run. And they get stopped up real easy, especially in the inline filter, more so on, like small equipment, your lawnmowers, your stuff like that. They'll get stopped up. Even your bigger equipment, a lot of them have small inline filters, and those they'll get full of dirt, sucks them in, collapses them, and once it collapses, it stops the flow of the fuel, and it can damage your engine, because it's not getting the fuel that it needs to keep it running right. Air filters, big deal. They don't get taken care of the way they should.
Do you usually just change those every time?
Well, it depends on what kind of machine you have. If you can blow it out and there's no restrictions, do so. Blow it from the inside out. Make your dirt come to the outside. Radiators, big time. Especially in a dusty barn where you're pulling in, let's say you got alfalfa and grass hay and stuff like that. The dust collects in those. The radiators have real small fins, and it will stop them up, and which will cause the air not to flow through the veins to cool it down. Another big deal is whether you use air, if you use water, you use a water hose, not a sprayer. Because if you don't know what you're doing with the sprayer, you'll bend your veins over, and then you just run the radiator. We just had to add coolant to this one because somebody told me that it was getting told me it was getting hot. So we look at it, and there's no fluid in the coolant system. Your radiators, everybody thinks, well, just add some water to it. No. You keep doing that, and eventually winter comes along, and you don't test it, and it freezes. And then you're stuck with an engine that's froze up that can push freeze plugs out, bust the block. There's 1,000 things that can happen. And then, something that was a $30 fix turns into a $3,000 fix. Yeah. So it happens in a hurry. Oil dipsticks. Check your oil. I usually have a rag. Cuff of my pants works. One thing that I do recommend, if you're going to store your machine, it's called no mice. It comes in a bag. You throw it in there, it keeps the rats and stuff out. They love to chew on the wires. Something about the acid in the wires, they will chew a wiring harness completely up. This particular machine, a new wiring harness, if you had to put one in it, is close to $3,000. That's just for the wiring harness. That doesn't include my labor to put it in. And you got a tractor stuck in the middle of your barn. What do?
Yeah.
It's
way more of a hassle.
Yeah. And then you got to wait on me to show up.
Yeah.
And tell you, well, if you would have done this, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Then you get a lecture from Ronnie.
Yeah.
I'm always scared to tell him we're in trouble.
I only do that to him because he's still a young pup.
You don't lecture all your customers?
Not all of them.
I just thought that was the
it's just you.
Deal.
Just you.
I thought that came free with the call.
No,
it's free for me.
Yep, that's it. No charge. Right now, I find we got a lift cylinder that's leaking right here, and there's no fluid in the coolant system. We're low on oil, so How much trouble do you want to get in?
But one thing that he was talking about was poisons and bars, things like that. Just One Bite bars are probably the most popular. The government has changed the regulations on this. You have to buy it in an 8-pound box now on this size. But these are one of our most popular solutions for that. They come in a small 1-pound package. You can break those apart and do little chunks. One thing that is still you can buy in smaller quantities though is this. This size is a 1-pound bag. It comes in a bunch of small bars like that. And then he had mentioned the small packages that you can just throw the packs in. These come in a small little ounce size package with little chewable poisons inside the package. So you just throw the package around your tractor, around your wiring harnesses like he was talking about, and then the mice will chew into the package. And so you can do something like that as well. So we have a bunch of different solutions as well for mouse poisons and things like that that you can put inside your equipment.